Good morning. Good morning. My name is Ron Bell. I'm your host of Boston Black News. We're here this morning to talk about the election season we're in it. We are in it. The 2024 presidential election. There are also elections going on locally here, and we have some ballot questions. We're going to really dig down deep into the ballot questions. We have 5 ballot questions. You know, you get old there, you're freezing over here. October 19th is early voting. And what we're doing at Dunk the Vote, along with Jack and Jill Inc. and the Dorchester Community Development Corporation, on October 19th, we're going to be knocking on your door in this area, Ward 17, I believe. Ward 17, the District 6, I believe that's the district. The Carbon Square, Dorchester area, we're going to be knocking on doors, getting people to go out and vote early because the game has changed. You can vote early. If you are a resident of Boston and you're a registered voter, you can go to any of the following sites on October 19th. There are some sites listed on the City of Boston website. We're going to be handing out a piece from Dunk the Vote. It'll be on our website, dunkthevoteforever.org. Make sure you go to our website. You'll be able to see the different locations where you can cast your ballot early, October 19th all the way to November 1st. And there are listings on the City of Boston website, boston.gov/elections. I also want to congratulate the Freedom House, the 75th anniversary they had last night. I didn't have the opportunity to go, but I wanted to make sure I announced that because 75 years of Freedom House has been the cornerstone of the community, the black community, and particularly around issues focusing on education. And today we're going to educate and we're going to talk about these ballot questions. There are 5 ballot questions on the ballot this year, and I want to go over them because I think it's very important that we learn about what we're going to be voting for on October 19th or November 5th, because that's the last day that you can vote in person. So there are a number of ways that you can vote. You can apply to vote by mail. You can get that in by October 29th. November 5th is the election. Polls open at 7 a.m. They close at 8 p.m. Early voting sites begin around 11 a.m. to like 5 p.m. or 7 p.m. I have to look at my notes, make sure I get the information right. Also, we have an event coming up, and we're not having it, but the Women of Color Business Summit 2024. It's going to be held Wednesday, October 16th, 8 o'clock to 5 p.m. College of the Holy Cross. Just want to give a shout out to Kimberly, who had talked to me about this event. It's going to be an exciting event. Women entrepreneurs, make sure you go and get your tickets. Again, Women of Color Business Summit 2024, Wednesday, October 16, 2024, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the College of the Holy Cross. So let's dig right down into question number 1, which is on the ballot. Make sure me put on my specs here. It's question number 1 says, state auditor's authority to audit the legislator. Okay, now the state auditor is Diane DeZiglio, and the legislator are the state reps and the senators. Okay, so the summary reads, this proposed law would specify that the state auditor has the authority to audit the legislature. So you would have the state auditor auditing the legislators on their personnel, non-personnel budgets. And so that's a yes. A yes vote would specify that the state auditor has the authority to audit the legislator, and a no vote would make no change in the law relative to the state's auditor authority. So this is question number 1. This is the number 1 question on the ballot. On the ballot, state auditor authority to audit the legislator. A yes vote would specify that the state auditor has the authority to audit the legislator, and a no vote would make no change in the law relative to the state auditor's authority. Okay, statement of fiscal consequences. The proposed law has no discernible material fiscal consequences for state and municipal government finances. The arguments in favor: a vote yes on question 1 expressly authorizes the state auditor to audit the Massachusetts legislator. Against, Constitutional scholars and civics educators strongly urge a no vote on question 1. So there you have it on question number 1. If you have some more questions, we can reach out to the dunkthevoteforever.org. We want to just continue to go right through these questions. All this morning, we're going to just go over these questions. We have another question number 2, which is a popular one. Elimination of MCAS as high school graduation requirement. And we have someone on the line who's going to talk more about that. Caller, you're live on Boston Black News.
Hi, good morning.
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
Good. Caller, can you identify yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Betsy Perval. I am a middle school teacher in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Okay, great. So you are voting how on this question and why? Question number 2.
Myself personally, I am voting absolutely yes on question 2. And the main reason, and I am thrilled to be able to go into this in more depth, I've been a public school educator for 13 years, working with very diverse students of very diverse backgrounds and very diverse needs. And in my 13 years as a classroom educator, MCAS has never helped me teach one student. It has never given me data or any information that helps me improve the academic and social outcomes or growth for any of my students in my 13 years. So the fact that a high school diploma would be withheld based off of the results of one singular assessment, in my opinion, is a gross insult to public education.
Okay, well, let's read the other side of a no vote. And I want you to respond to this. A no vote would make no change in the law relative to the requirement that a student pass the MCAS in order to graduate high school. And some say that it's going to lower the standards. What is your response to that? As far as teaching, there's no accountability.
Sure. And I think it's important, particularly just knowing who the audience is right now. And I know folks can't see me right now. Like, I'm a biracial educator. Like, I identify as Black biracial.
Okay.
We all know that public education in its foundation was never meant for people like us.
Right.
It wasn't created for Black and brown folks. It wasn't created for those who weren't wealthy or had, like, high-class status. Mm-hmm. So, yes, there are critiques, valid critiques when it comes to the public education system.
Right.
However, fast forwarding to today, the standards can be addressed in multiple different ways.
Right.
So we have students, and we even have adults, like thinking about adult learners.
Right.
Some of us learn better when we're able to be in conversation with one another. Some of us learn better when we're able to have like a visual processing opportunity and then being able to engage in silent reflection and then discourse. Right. What the MCAS just measures is your ability to take a test. Mm-hmm. That is it. We're not dealing with any real-world contextual issues. We're dealing with arbitrary selected reading passages that the vast majority of students that come from either like urban backgrounds cannot relate to. They have no point of reference.
Right.
And so to say that this one singular assessment is the end-all and be-all of whether or not you have achieved grade-level standards is a complete farce.
Yes.
The standards is how we as educators tailor our classrooms and our curricula and our lessons to meet the needs and meet the deficits and the skill sets of the students that we have in front of us.
Right.
Does there need to be accountability? 100%.
Great.
100%.
Great.
Does there need to be any type of, evaluation, reflection, et cetera? Yes. And I agree that needs to be a more transparent process, particularly with families and caregivers in the larger community. But to say that one standardized test that, and no one likes to bring this up either, that private school students don't take, that students who go to religious schools do not take. It's more of an indictment on class and race than it is about educational standards.
So you're saying that we're going to bring someone else into this conversation. We have Ms. Simmons on the phone. Ms. Simmons, we want you to identify yourself and tell us your stand on this question. Number 2, elimination of the MCAS as high school graduation requirement.
Hi there. Yeah, my name is Deshaun Simmons. I'm a middle school educator and the president of Somerville Educators Union.
Okay.
And I am deeply passionate about this issue as well. As the other speaker was mentioning, I think those were very important points that was just brought up in the very end about who's taking the test, who's not.
Right.
Because it really adds to the question of who is this test serving.
Right. Yeah. I did not know that the MCAS is required only for Boston public schools. Is that throughout the state?
Yes. So if you are a charter school, if you are a private school, you are not obligated to take the MCAS.
Okay. I didn't know that. So go ahead.
Yeah,
I want you to continue though. It just shocked me. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and the other part I'll mention about this that a lot of folks don't know is that any child that is in the special education program and they're on an IEP, which is a individualized education plan for that child,
right?
This tends to happen for kids when they're young,
right?
First, second, third grade. Teachers are noticing that a student might be able to use some more support. They bring that to the family. They say, we think an IEP will help your kid, and they have that conversation with the family, and the family signs off on it. And this is happening when your kid's maybe in second or third grade, right? Mm-hmm. No one's having the conversation that when your child gets to the end of 12th grade, they're not going to earn a high school diploma.
Right. Let me just, in the document I have here for and against, a vote no on question 2, and I want your response. Question 2 is unfair to kids and will increase inequality. Some school districts will just adopt lower standards so students graduate even if they haven't learned the knowledge and skills they need to succeed. It's not fair to grant diplomas to kids who aren't yet ready to graduate. If students cannot pass basic assignments in math, English, or science, we adults should do the hard work to get them up to speed instead of supporting kids. Question 2 would abandon them. Question 2 would remove our only statewide graduation standard. Massachusetts would have less rigorous the high school graduation requirements than Mississippi and Alabama. Question 2 is a radical and untested proposal and should be rejected. Significant changes to focus on quality, only those skills that can be measured on a standardized test. Response.
It's a very interesting quote because when you really break it down, they're talking about so many different things.
Right. I got confused reading it.
I was just like,
okay.
Deja, you go ahead. You go first. You go first.
Because I want both of you to respond to that because I got confused reading it.
Exactly. It's interesting because, the one thing that you said that I want to address, they made, Massachusetts is one of 8 states that hold on to this requirement.
Okay.
That their standardized test is tied to graduation.
1 out of 8?
1 out of 8.
Okay.
We're 1 out of 8 states left in the nation.
Wow.
So to say that we're going to be like, one, I think it is inflammatory to name a state like Alabama because, the connotation that's going to happen with that. But we're behind what the rest of the nation's doing. The rest of the nation has learned that high-stakes testing is not it. It is not the be-all, end-all. And the other part I want to mention is they made a comment in there about teachers and their assessments and all that sorts of stuff. Those are the things, teachers know their students best.
Right.
A standardized test is not going to tell a teacher anything about their kid that they don't already know.
Right. Right.
You know, teachers are rigorously evaluated.
Mm-hmm.
We embrace high standards. What we're not willing to embrace is a test that harms any kid.
Right.
And I don't care if we're harming 5 kids or 500 kids. If we're harming a kid, we really have to sit back and reflect on what we're doing. But Betsy, I'm going to let you go because that comment was so loaded.
Yeah. It's so much. And go ahead.
Yeah, I could unpack that statement for hours. One of my main gripes with that statement is the test doesn't determine what the standards are. The standards are developed by the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And that is what each school district, each school, each classroom is held accountable to. How are you meeting these standards?
Right.
What a standardized test implies is that there's only one right way to meet that standard. And if that were true, every single school across the Commonwealth would be doing the same exact thing in every single classroom. And when you say it out loud, you know that doesn't make sense. That
Right.
doesn't make sense because our children are beautiful, sometimes challenging, but they are beautiful, unique human beings with backstories, with experience, they're coming in with trauma. Some of them are coming in, with a lot of adult issues that they are having to manage in their young lives.
Right.
So to treat the standards as some type of universal method that can only be assessed in one standardized way, quite frankly, is insulting to everything we know about public education and what we hold dear.
Right.
And when you dig into the data more, as far as actually who is being harmed by the graduation requirement, it's the same population that public education has disserved for a number of years. It is low income, primarily black and brown students, primarily those that are immigrant students, that English is not their first language, that they have recently come into the country. The most minoritized groups are the ones that are suffering as a result. And when you withhold that graduation, or when you withhold that diploma with the graduation requirement, what that does is you are essentially upholding a culture of poverty. You are forcing our most marginalized youth to enter into a world where they will not be able to get any job beyond, that needs a higher degree. Now we can get into the cost of college. That's not about question 2.
Right.
But there's also something, too, that Deshaun mentioned that is really important as well, particularly for you families out there that have a child that has counseling through school or academic services through school. Every time these assessments are given, your child, your niece, your nephew, your grandchild, their services stop. They're not getting their counseling. They're not getting their academic services. Everything is put on hold. So quite frankly, I don't understand how there hasn't been a massive lawsuit against the state for implementing these things.
Yeah.
Because,
okay. Let me just interject for a second, because I want to talk about even the mental health aspect of this, as relates to learning. The teachers traumatized by having to teach to test, and the number of things that I know a couple of teachers, and they're up all night working, trying to do papers and correction papers and test taking, and it's stressful. And then you have to have the energy for the students. What does it do to a teacher as far as this test, as far as mental health and wellness?
I would say that this test does unbelievable things from administrators all the way down to teachers, all the way down to students,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it starts at the top.
Right.
You know, what superintendent wants to be in charge of a school district that has a failing district around the MCAS, right? Who wants that press? And so they'll put that pressure on their principals. Get your
Wow.
scores up. Get your scores up, especially this post-COVID world we're talking about, right?
Right.
And then that stress trickles right down to the teachers,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And, you know, having been a history teacher, you know, there are moments when you have to make a decision. Am I going to continue with this thing that kids are really engaged about and really want to talk about and is really important to their long-term development? Or I'm going to stick and talk about this standard I've talked about 45 times?
Right.
You know, they're always making that decision of, can I teach when, can I do instruction when my kids are authentically engaged and want to have this conversation, even when it's not attached to that, you know, that standard, or it's not attached to that lesson. You know, teachers are always teaching to the test. They're always carrying that stress. And I'm not sure if you can relate, Betsy, but around March in schools, everything changes. Everything becomes test prep.
Really? Okay. Do they still have assemblies in school where young people have speakers coming in, and does that happen anymore?
Some schools
Very rarely.
Like a rally around on a test. It's most schools don't. If I'm not mistaken, Betsy.
Well, I'm sorry. I want to make sure I'm understanding the question. Is the question at our schools having a
assembly
or rally? Like, hey, let's get pumped for the test.
For the test? Well, no, I mean just in general, just learning differently of real life experiences, people coming in. Does that happen?
I can speak personally to that.
Yeah.
When you are teaching it, when you are teaching in a school or a district that is heavily focused on the results of these of this test,
right?
You cannot sacrifice any time for anything that's not going to help them be successful on it.
Got it. Okay.
You can't.
Okay. No, I get it. No, I go ahead.
I would echo that.
Okay. So what about teachers that voting no on question 2?
What about them?
I mean, what are some of the things that they're saying? Because there are some teachers who are not in agreement voting yes.
You know, there aren't, and you know, there are some
is there a
districts out
percentage?
there.
Is it a percentage of teachers? Are the teachers leaning more so towards yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's that percentage approximately? Do we know that?
I wouldn't feel comfortable putting numbers out there right now. I know that the Massachusetts Teachers Association and the American Federation of Teachers, also with the Boston Teachers Union, has done a lot of polling when it comes to educator mindset when it comes to the question. So I would trust those sources more. That I don't want to say anything that's not substantiated.
Okay.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah, I would say they have the numbers.
Okay. And what about the students? What are students saying? And parents?
You know, I've been administering the MCAS to students as young as 5th grade. And every single time I get the question of, why do we have to do this?
Mm-hmm.
What does this show? You know, what is the point of this? Why does this feel so stressful? You know, so for students, I mean, if you ask a student right now, would you rather take a test or not take a test? I think we all know what the answer is going to be.
Right.
But in terms of asking a student, and particularly those in high school, who, when they really do start thinking about life after, you know, K-12 education, the ones I've spoken with, especially those I know who struggle with test-taking skills, this is the difference, as Betsy talked about. This is the difference between them entering society and being productive and getting out of poverty for some. You know, and so they would like to remove this requirement. I've done a bunch of canvassing where I've spoken to recent graduates of high school who said, wow, I wish this was a thing when I was in school. I would have been maybe a little bit more productive.
Really? Okay.
You know, I wouldn't have been so discouraged.
Wow.
You know, it is not a good feeling for a student to walk into a test that they know they can't perform well.
Right, right. And what if
they have to sit there?
What if a student is doing well all year long and fails their test? They don't graduate?
Correct.
That's correct.
Wow.
They're given the opportunity
To take it over?
retake the MCAS
Okay.
in their junior and sometimes, if needed, in their senior year.
Uh-huh.
But again, you can imagine what type of pressure and stress that puts on a young person that knows they're literally running out of time to
Right.
get that high school diploma.
Right.
And when it is so heartbreaking to hear stories of young people that have been accepted to colleges, but then have had to unenroll because they don't have that one requirement. But the question was also asked about parents,
Right.
like how do students and parents feel about this? And understandably so, parents are nervous.
Yeah.
Parents are nervous.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, everyone wants what's best for their child or just young people that you care about in general.
100%. 100%.
And my response to that would be, as I said in the opener, the MCAS does absolutely nothing to help classroom teachers, to help schools meet the needs of unique individual students.
Right.
It does not help. If it did help, then we would see more of an influx in funding coming in.
Right.
You wouldn't have such a disparity in access to technology,
Right.
access to state-of-the-art buildings,
Right.
access to highly qualified teachers, access to low student-to-teacher ratios.
Right.
So the investment needs to be on the ground, in the buildings, in the classrooms, and not going to $1 billion test-taking enterprise.
Right. Well,
That's right.
I just want to thank you both for calling in and thank you for giving us some insight from your personal experience. Yes, vote yes on question 2. So your closing remarks, Deshaun and
Yeah.
Deborah, you have 2 minutes each to do your closing remarks to kind of do your pitch.
Sure. Listen, my pitch around this is really simple. We're in the business of helping kids succeed. As Congresswoman Ione Presley said, you know, educators are our nation builders. You know, we are building the future of tomorrow. We can't do that tethered to this test. We cannot ensure student success when they're beyond high school when we're so deeply connected to this one-time test.
Right.
It's important for folks to know that the MCAS is not going away. You'll have it. It's a federal requirement. We still gotta take it. School districts can still use it as a measure of success of how well they're doing. But the only thing we're saying is that this should not determine whether or not a student is able to walk across that stage and get a high school diploma.
That's it right there. Deborah?
And my closing remarks, it's more so a question, what kind of society do we want? Do we want a society that is about individualism, isolation, always being, ranked and compared to one another? Or do we want a society that knows how to collaborate, to compromise, to have critical discourse conversations with each other, to reflect on ideas, and to be able to come to different conclusions, to learn and grow from one another and with one another? And the MCAS does not support that type of community.
Well, thank you again. Appreciate you coming on, and then thank you for your service to our young people. We really appreciate you. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Bye-bye. 617-282-0685. We are talking about the ballot questions, and I just learned something in question number 2. I didn't realize that the charter and private and religious schools are not required. Wow, that was some insight. I want to continue on with our questions. We talked about this morning question number 1, is state auditors' authority to audit the legislature. We gave both sides on that. Both sides on question number 2, elimination of MCAS as high school graduation requirement. So we're going to continue on with our questions. We have 5 questions. We want to roll right through these questions. On question number 3, unionization for transportation network drivers. This proposed law would provide transportation network drivers with the right to form unions. That's the Ubers and the Lyfts and, different transportation groups to collectively bargain with transportation network companies, which are companies that use a digital network to connect riders to drivers for prearranged transportation to create negotiated recommendations concerning wages, benefits, and terms and conditions of work. Drivers would not be required to engage in any union activities. Companies would be allowed to form multi-negotiating with driver organizations. The state would supervise the labor activities permitted by the proposed law and would have responsibility for approving or disapproving the negotiated recommendations. So that's the side of the summary, which is a long summary. And we're going to go right here to question 3. Yes, would provide transportation network drive the option to form unions to collectively bargain with transportation network companies regarding wages, benefits, and terms and conditions of work. Now, what your vote will do on a yes vote. As required by law, the statements describing the effect of a yes or no vote are written jointly by the State Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, and the Secretary of the Commonwealth, which is Bill Galvin. All right? A no vote would make no change in the law relative to the ability of transportation network drivers to form unions. So that's, pretty much it's going to remain the same. So a yes vote on this proposed law, unionization of transportation of network drivers. Again, a yes vote will provide transportation network drive the option to form a union. The unions, it would be nice to listen to Uber. If you're out there listening, Boston Black News, 617-282-0685. If you're out there and you're an Uber driver, you're a Lyft driver, or transportation authority that this question, number 3, affects, call in and let us know, what do you think? What do you plan on doing on October 19th if you choose to go to the polling locations for the early voting, or November 5th on the presidential election Tuesday? A yes vote will give Massachusetts ride-share drivers who work for companies like Uber and Lyft the option to join a union. The option to join a union while also maintaining driver flexibility and independence. The option to join a union is guaranteed for most workers, but ride-share drive companies don't have that choice. Vote yes will allow ride-share drive the option to choose a union. So that's, again, a yes vote on number 3, question number 3. That's the argument as provided by law. The 150-word arguments are written by proponents and opponents of each question and reflect their opinions. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts does not endorse these arguments and does not certify the truth of accuracy of any statement made in these arguments. The names of the individual organizations who wrote each argument and any written comments by others about each argument are on file in the office of the Secretary of the Commonwealth. So that's good to know. These arguments are not endorsed by the state. Of course not, because they're different arguments. There's a yes side and there's a no side. So against question number, drivers and riders urge no on question 3 would raise the prices for all riders, funding union pockets, not drivers' pockets. This law gives politicians the right to set rules with no accountability and creates a new radical labor category that is consistent with federal labor law. Drivers in Massachusetts already receive base of $32.50 per hour with yearly increases. paid sick leave, paid family medical leave, health care stipend, on-the-job injury insurance, anti-discrimination protections, domestic violence, anti-retaliation protections, appeals process. Question 3 does not really create bargaining for workers. Drivers will have no control over leadership of the union, will pay significant dues in real representation. This proposal is not fair for drivers and allow just 2.5% of drivers to force unionization and leaves many drivers without a vote. That's a vote no on question number 3. So there you have the 3 questions we are presenting this morning. We have a caller on the line. Welcome to Boston Black News. Who's calling?
Good morning, John Bell. This is Eric Kennedy calling.
Hey, what's going on, Eric?
How you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Good. So I'm not an Uber driver, but I take a lot of Ubers. And when I found out this was on the ballot, I started talking to Uber drivers about it.
Okay.
And a lot of them, especially the white drivers, they're definitely for it. The minority drivers would like that because, again, I take Ubers, and if my Uber is $40, they're probably getting 17 of that.
Okay.
And Uber's getting the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And so they are tasked with, paying their own taxes and different things like that. So they don't get enough to cover that. And at the end of the year, when they have to do their taxes and stuff, they're wondering why they're owed so much money. But the black and Spanish drivers I talked to are worried that, if they become a union thing, then, they need to learn how to form a union, what it takes so that the white folks don't take it for themselves and make sure that they, get what from the union, and then they're left out.
Right. Interesting. We're going to be having some union reps from the steelworkers coming on because they had asked me to, they wanted to help out with civic engagement, some voting stuff with Dunk the Vote. And they also were talking about recruiting more folks of color as far as steelworkers. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Eric. I heard that the company gets most of the resources, or whatever the amount is. They said the base of $32.50 per hour with yearly increases. So I don't know. I mean, how are you voting on this?
I'm voting yes. I think either way, whether it's their white counterparts that are organizing the unions or anything, I think they'll all benefit from it. Especially if you try to take an Uber from like a special event, like if I try to take an Uber from my house, from Fenway Park to my house,
right,
it's almost $60.
Yeah, I know.
That's ridiculous. And then when I get in the Uber, they're lucky if they're getting 22 of it.
Yeah. Wow. And the union,
and they'll ask you, what did Uber charge you? And I'll tell them, and it's just like, wow, this is ridiculous.
Right. And so,
but that's for some of them, for a lot of them, especially those who aren't from here, don't speak much English. That's the way for them to make money, and they just
want the money right there. Yeah, they just want
the
money, and they're not thinking about the penalties of taxes and the amount of taxes they're going to have to pay on that money, and they just that's a symptom of poverty, to be quite frank.
Can I ask?
So I think having a union would help them, set aside money for taxes or pay the taxes quarterly and different things like that. Just help them develop a business, because it is their own business now. So they need to think of it as that and not just a job with Uber.
And as you mentioned, and take advantage of what is offered by the union and understand how the union operates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
and also, just to be as a business owner, there's tax breaks that they can get that they don't even know about.
Correct. Pastor Wall wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was hoping I could get in here for a minute. You two were just, having a little love fest going on.
A bromance? Is that what it's called? A bromance?
Eric, you mentioned a price from your house to Fenway Park is $60. Is that unusual?
Yeah, during a game or a concert because it's the high demand of it.
Right.
Yeah, they do what's called price hikes.
And not to mention the bike lanes, the bus lanes, the bumps, the speed bumps.
You have a problem with the bike lanes?
Oh, of course. I'm going to publicly say that. I almost got hit by a bus the other day. And then you have, what is identified as a bike? Is it a bike that you drive with the motor? I mean, I see the scooters go down the bike lanes. The bikes go down the bike lanes. The ones that go 20 miles an hour.
Don't you think
running people over? They don't follow. Not all of them follow the rules.
Very few of them follow the rules.
I mean,
don't you think that the people on bikes, whether it be electric or regular bikes, or I don't know if mopeds can.
They ride. The mopeds ride there too. The delivery.
But wouldn't you wouldn't it be better? Let's not get off your topic for today. Wouldn't it be better for them, even the mopeds, to be in the bike lane? Because the mopeds are sliding in and out of traffic. They can come out of nowhere and cause a horrific.
Especially if someone hit them when they open the door.
Eric?
I don't know, but I don't see any Uber drivers driving bikes around.
Eric said, I'm not going there at all. But no. Eric, you said that's price hiking. They can do that. That's legal?
Yeah. If it's raining, you'll know if the weather's bad. The price hike goes up.
Certain hours.
Like certain hours of the day. Yeah, there are times like I can take a Uber. It depends on the time. I can take a from Boston to Borica for $40, but yet it takes $60 to go from my house to Fenway Park at some time.
Wow.
It's actually 45 minutes to go from JP to Mattapan, and you can go to Rhode Island in 45 minutes on the commuter rail.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so you really have to study the Ubers, the Lyfts, if you're gonna use them, because if not, you'll be spending too much money.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I check both. If I'm going somewhere, I always check both to see which one's the cheapest.
Lyft and Uber?
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. Wow. Eric, I want you to stay on the line because there's another question. We have two more questions I want to go over. 617-282-0685. We have Eric Kennedy on the line. We are talking about the ballot questions this morning. Remember, October 19th is early voting. November 5th is the general election. October 19th all the way to November 1st is the early voting, and I want folks to make sure they vote early if they can. We have a caller on the line. Caller, you're live on Boston Black News.
Hi, I hope you can hear me.
Hi, I can hear you.
Thanks. My name's Elaine. I'm new to Uber. I just joined up out of necessity.
Okay.
A couple of observations. My neighbor across the street worked in East Boston a while ago. His Uber cost $30. It cost me $70 to go from Logan to my house, in the same distance. So I find them exorbitant. And the other thing, Uber drivers used to be happy when they first started,
right?
Because they could make money and pay for their vehicles, and they were very happy and proud to be Uber drivers.
Right.
When I looked into this, it turns out that some big names, I don't have it right now, paid Uber to get started on a business model, and now they want their money back. So the prices have hiked. It's not the cheap, quick ride. That's number one. Number two, they put taxis pretty much out of business.
Right.
And taxis have all kinds of regulations about safety, etc. You can get in a nice Uber, but you can also get in a jalopy.
That's
there's
true.
Nothing to say one way or the other. It's still the Wild West, and I think the union's going to complicate it.
Oh,
My
really?
last observation, if you'll bear with me,
Sure.
is getting from the airport to my house, 5 Uber drivers committed to come and pick me up, and 5 of them bailed with no explanation, no accountability. They could just do it because they could do it. Whereas in a taxi, and I think the rates are probably similar right now. They would have to explain why they didn't pick somebody up. So that the whole Uber thing is rocky right now, and adding a complication to it, like a union on top of no accountability and the Wild West scenario. I don't see it.
Okay, so you're voting no.
I'd have to. I am not an Uber fan.
You're not an Uber fan.
No, I guess I signed up for Uber in California.
Okay.
First car I took was nice. The second car, I didn't even know if it was roadworthy, and there's no one to check. It's just the happy Uber drivers that I met when the thing first started. They don't seem to be the same group of people now.
Right. How did you find Boston Black News? Were you listening online or?
I listen on 102.
Point
nine. I'm a fan. I'm a contributor.
Okay.
Lots of times I want to comment, but sometimes so my Uber hurt is recent, so I'm just weighing in.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. And where are you calling from?
Well, right now I'm in Quincy, but I live in Dorchester, around the corner from the station. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being a faithful fan and continue to listen. Especially on Friday mornings at 8 a.m. Boston Black News. But anytime, there's always a good discussion on all the different platforms. So thank you very much.
It's great.
All right.
It's my breakfast club.
All
Hi,
right.
Reverend Wall.
All right.
Take
Reverend
care.
Wall. Okay, you take care. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
So 617-282-0685. We're having a conversation about the ballot questions, and we have Eric Kennedy on the line, and I believe you had something to say, Eric.
Yeah, so one other thing about the Uber drivers that I wish, if they formed the union, that they would do, because there are times I take Ubers, and the driver is not even from the area. They're from Rhode Island or somewhere else, and they have to stick to the Uber driver directional, the GPS thing.
Right.
They're not from here, so I'm trying to get from my house to the convention center, and they want to take 93, and I'm like, no, do not get on 93. Please go this way. Oh, I have to follow the GPS.
Right.
And I'm like, because you see the Rhode Island plate, they come all the way here because they know they can make more money in Boston.
Correct.
So I'm hoping if a union is formed, they do some type of rule like the taxis do, like. If you're a Boston taxi, you can't pick up in Cambridge. You can't pick up in things because you're taking business from those people that have their licenses in those cities.
And also, when you're a taxi driver, you can choose who you want to pick up. If you're a black man, which I seem to be always in that category, they'll fly right by you and won't take you to certain places. So the Uber kind of like helped with that situation. Because I don't put my picture on my profile, so so they can, when they see me, they're like, oh, okay, it's him, So anyway, 617.
Yeah, but an Uber driver also, they don't know where they're going until they know where they're picking up, but they don't know where they're going until they accept it.
Okay.
Can I ask Eric a question? I know this is your broadcast, and I know that you pay $1,000 per hour to be on.
Oh yeah.
So Eric, I've been in Ubers before, and I attest to what you're saying. They look at the GPS, and I want to say, no, I'm on my way to the church. Take this right, take this left. You're cool. They can defer from the GPS if you could persuade them. Correct?
Oh, I have. Right. I've actually had them defer from the. I was like, no, go this way. But I've also found out other streets, that I never even went down.
Right. But can they say no to you? I'm going
Absolutely.
to. Oh, they can.
Cause they don't want to get fired, and some of them don't know the place.
Not only fired, like it's mostly, you'll notice it's mostly the people that aren't from the Boston area that come in from outside of Boston to do Uber. Yeah. And because they don't know the area, they don't trust that, we're taking them somewhere that's safe, or, we'll try to direct them somewhere where they can rob them or something like that.
Yeah. Right, especially listening to the news and folks telling them don't go in certain neighborhoods. Wow. And some of these Uber drivers that come in from other states, they sleep in the cars. Yeah, they sleep in the cars. But okay, anyway, let's continue on with the ballot questions because we have 2 more ballot questions. I want to get through these 2 more. Question number 4. Question number 4 is to limited legalization and regulation of certain natural psychedelic substances. Wow. This proposed law will allow persons aged 21 and older to grow, possess, and use certain natural psychedelic substance in certain circumstances. Psychedelic substance allowed would be 2 substances found in mushrooms, psilocybin and psilocin, and 3 substances found in plants. I don't know how to pronounce these words, and I'm not going to try. So it sounds like you'll get very high. These substances could be purchased at an approval location for use under the supervision of a licensed facilitator. The proposed law would otherwise prohibit any retail sale of natural psychedelic substances. We're going to go right down to this. A yes vote would allow persons over age 21 to use certain natural psychedelic substances under licensed supervision and to grow and possess limited quantities of those substances in their home, and would create a commission to regulate those substances. A no vote would make no change in the law regarding natural psychedelic substances. The measure would establish this is a statement of fiscal consequence as required by law. Statement of fiscal consequence written by the Executive Office of Administrative and Finance, which is under the Governor's Office. This measure would establish a 15% state. So this is about the money. A 15% state excise tax for the sale of natural psychedelic substances, which would be available for spending from a dedicated fund. However, the revenue-generating impact is unknown due to the lack of data for the new market being proposed. This measure would also allow for a local tax option that would generate local sales tax revenue. This measure would also create an oversight committee that would require dedicated, sound like the Cannabis Commission, huh? Okay, so that's in favor. Vote yes on 4 to provide safe, regulated access to prominent natural psychedelic medicines for treatment-resistant PTSD, anxiety, and depression. Psychedelics will be available in approved therapeutic settings under the supervision of trained and licensed facilities, not sold in stores. Now, this is against it. Medical and mental health professionals, veterans, and recovery groups urge a no on question 4. Would decriminalize psychedelics, open for profit centers, allow for growth in a 12 area in homes and district statewide. A black market is inevitable with this amount of home growth. And recently, as driver's license revocation for drug driving rose 65%, and fatal DUI crashes increased over 50%, with 1 in 3 frequent psychedelic users reporting driving under the influence of psychedelics in the past. That will increase.
Just the term, Eric and Ron, psychedelic drugs.
I'm getting confused.
I'm getting high. I'm getting high.
Don't say
So
that in your TikTok.
you notice that they put in those scientific names for them, but for those who don't know what psychedelic drugs are, we're talking about acid or LSD, which people know about.
Right.
Ecstasy, which people know about. Shrooms or magic mushrooms, which most people know about. The morning glory seed, DMT, and peyote. Those are probably the most common that people know about. But I look at this as, I don't know anyone of my color, Spanish, or anything that takes psychedelic drugs. I would say it's a Caucasian drug.